Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Depolarizers podcast. Today, I'm excited to be in conversation with Congressman Tom Suozzi, who represents New York's 3rd Congressional District. Congressman Suozzi has been in public service for more than 30 years. He served as mayor of his hometown of Glen Cove, as Nassau County executive, and as a member of Congress from 2017 to 2022. He briefly left Congress in 2022, but returned after winning a special election in February 2024 to fill the seat vacated by George Santos. This Congress, he's a member of the House Committee on Ways and Means, and in addition to his co-chairmanship of the Problem Solvers Caucus, he serves as the chair of the Democrats for Border Security, co-chair of the Bipartisan SALT Caucus, co-chair of the Bipartisan Uyghur Caucus, co-chair of the Bipartisan Pakistan Caucus, and vice chair of the Bipartisan Quiet Skies Caucus. Thanks for listening. Congressman Suozzi, it's so great to have you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited to be with you.
I'm thrilled for this conversation. I was really enjoying the clip that was going on around on X with you on the late Jordan show. Which I don't remember which one it was, but
yeah, Jordan. Yeah.
You were so great on that. I was like, I can't wait to talk to him. So thank you again for taking the time.
Thank you so much.
Well, let's just go ahead and get into it. You wrote a really great op-ed at the top of the year, and I want to quote something you wrote. As a Democratic member of Congress, I know my party will be tempted to hold fast against Mr. Trump at every turn. That would be a mistake. Only by working together to find compromise on parts of the president's agenda can we make progress for Americans who are clearly demanding change in the economy, immigration, crime, and other top issues. Democrats should meet him halfway rather than be the party of no. You lay this out perfectly. This has been something that we've been really emphasizing at Welcome, which we are calling strategic opposition, right? What are some of the reasons why you felt this had to be emphasized and stated as a Democrat, right?
I think it's important that, we try to get stuff done. That's what people want. I mean, we're all like in our little teams and our political teams, and we're so focused about winning and stuff like that. And the people on the outside who are just, regular voters are like, hey, can't you guys work together to get stuff done? Can't you solve the problems? And I think that's what the people want. They want us to work together to address the economy and prices and immigration and the southern border and public safety. And, they want us to be like normal and in your personal life, you don't always agree with everybody, but you sit down and you try to work it out. That's what you do in your business. That's what you do in your family. That's what they want us to do in Congress. They want us to figure it out and work together to get things done. And, we're going to fight sometimes too. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that Trump has said already that I'm not happy with, but I'm choosing to figure out where are the places we can find agreement. And when I have to fight, I will. But I'm going to try and, the natural inclination of human beings is someone takes a crack at you or you disagree, you give them a crack back. That's normal. That's why, when Michelle Obama said, when they go low, we go high. And everybody's like, what are you talking about? You got to fight them. Or the idea, turn the other cheek. Like, what are you being such a wimp for? But to get stuff done, we've got to work to try and find some common ground. It's not worth doing these jobs in politics if just to win. It's just not worth it. It's only worth it if you actually get stuff done to make people's lives better.
Yeah, and I think you said that really well because, even when you think about the election cycle, Democrats were cheering about saving democracy and emphasizing how we were going to be, bipartisan and unified as a country. But when we don't actually provide evidence of Democrats wanting to collaborate with Republicans or even, just not talking about them like they're terrible people all the time, then that's not really creating trust among voters about the fact that we're actually willing to collaborate. So I just really appreciate you emphasizing that because it's kind of like, show, don't tell, right? When you talk about it, you talk a big game, but you don't actually exhibit those qualities and it loses trust among voters. And I think that's scary for us to think about in the future.
Yeah. Getting trust back. That's a big thing, getting trust back.
Totally, 100%. So thinking about this Trump administration over the next 4 years and the strategy behind it, what do you think are maybe some things that we can get some wins on over the next 4 years?
Well, I think we really have to focus on the border. I mean, that's the people want us to do it. And the Democrats are way behind on this issue, and we have to wake up to that. That's what the people want. And so we need to secure the border, a lot of which was negotiated in the Senate bipartisan deal that Trump killed, quite frankly. But a lot of stuff is there already. We need to fix the broken asylum system, which, people need to understand that a little bit better. I'd love to talk about that if you have time. And then third, we need to give a modernization to our legal immigration system so that we protect the dreamers and the temporary protective status folks that we invited to America after their earthquake or their flood or their civil war. We said, come to America. We need to give them some status. And our farm workers, 50% of our farm workers in America are probably undocumented. So we need to take this energy behind immigration to finally, after 30 years of everybody pointing fingers at each other, to finally secure the border for real, fix the broken asylum system, and treat people like human beings and fix some of these broken systems.
Yeah, our friend Adam Frisch, who ran in Colorado's third, really emphasizes the human dignity element of things. So I totally appreciate that.
Trump said, let's make a deal on dreamers. So let's hold him to that. And, we've been battling this stuff for 30 years, and we still have these millions of people that were brought here as young kids that still have no permanent status. We have, millions of people, or at least 1 million people that we invited to America that, have no status. We have all these other folks that have been working here as farm workers, healthcare workers, other types of people that have been working in America that really have no legitimate status. So let's make everybody make these folks legal. They can pay taxes. You don't want them to vote. You don't want to give them citizenship. Okay, you don't have to do that. Let's just make it so they don't have to look over their shoulder every day and worry about getting separated from their family and move on with their lives. After they're trying to live a decent life. Let's stop torturing these people.
Totally. And kind of going off of that emphasis on solutions and collaboration, you're now co-chair of the Problem Solvers Caucus. Congratulations. Very
Thank
exciting.
you. That was a big deal to get selected by my colleagues to do that. I'm excited about that.
You should be. It is really exciting.
25 Democrats, 25 Republicans meet every week. We're in Washington, try to find common ground, setting up working groups on immigration, on the budget, on taxes, on permitting reform, on climate, figure out how we can work together to get stuff done. Can I just talk to you about asylum for 1 second?
Yeah.
So, people don't understand asylum. We first passed the law back in 1980. And in the 80s, we were excited about asylum because it was usually the Soviets. We were fighting with the Soviet Union. And if somebody defected from the Soviets to America, we were like, yes, asylum, come here. We're the good guys. They're the bad guys. We love asylum. There was a movie with Robin Williams, Moscow on the Hudson. It was like, this is great stuff. We win, you lose. And, you defect from Cuba. It's like, we're doing it. We're the good guys. Now we need to depolarize, and we need Democrats and Republicans to stop attacking each other and go after our common enemy. Our common enemy are the cartels and the organized crime and the coyotes that are making billions of dollars by exploiting people and bringing them to our southern border, subjecting them to sexual and other physical violence, robbery, even death, and human trafficking. And they're making all this money and they're exploiting our system. They're using these people and they're weakening our country in the process. So stop attacking each other and let's go after the bad guys. And they're abusing the asylum system. 85% of asylum cases are denied. But people have been taught how to game the system so that they can get into the system. And then it takes 6, 7, 8 years to adjudicate these cases, which are, again, 85% are ultimately denied. But because the system's so overwhelmed, because these criminals are taking advantage of us, we've made a mess of things. So let's go after the common enemy instead of attacking each other.
And that's exactly what American voters want, right? They want solutions, and they also want to see people who they are electing and putting their trust in, go after the villains that are, like you said, your common foe here. So you kind of talked about it, the issues that you and the Problem Solvers Caucus are going to be attacking in this term. Do you find that there are issues that your Republican colleagues bring to you that you think are, maybe even surprising sometimes, but you're like, wow, I'm grateful that you guys want to work on this. Any other legislation that you mentioned immigration and tax reform, but any other things that you think are promising for the next few years?
Well, we just did a questionnaire to ask everybody what they want to work on. A lot of people came back with permitting reform. I can't believe how many people want to work on permitting reform. And a lot of people want to work on the budget, on deficits and things like. And there's all kinds of laws about individual one-off things. I mean, there's so much bipartisan stuff that actually happens in Congress. Every week, we start the week by voting on what are called suspension bills, where you suspend the rules. But to pass the bill, it has to pass by like 3/4. We do that every week, and you never hear about that stuff. Sometimes it's important stuff. And I want to start promoting more of the bipartisan stuff that happens just so the American people can realize that there is stuff that people are working on. You said something earlier about, stop thinking of everybody on the other side as being somebody evil. I mean, it's like there are bad guys on the Republican side or bad women on the Republican side, and there's, people that they would say are bad on our side. But most people are in elected office because they want to make the world a better place to live in. And they want to do the right thing. And we've got to stop this whole holding people in contempt. Just because you're on the other team, it's like, oh, are you kidding me? Nobody's one of those. It's like you can disagree with people without thinking they're evil or they're your enemy. And so we have to get that whole philosophical. I spend a lot of time just trying to understand where people are coming from. Like I remember in the gym, you're there shaving, and all the Republicans are talking about is college football and hunting. I was like, that's all they talk about. And it's like, yeah, we're going home for Thanksgiving and we're going to deer camp. And the kids have off for the first day of deer hunting season. I was like, what? They're like, yeah, the kids have off for the first day of deer hunting season. I said, the kids in my district have off for the first day of Yom Kippur. What are you talking about? So it's like, so yeah, and yeah, we're all going to camp and we're gonna do deer roast and deer sausage and this is just like, I've never even thought about this before. And it's like, you sell the most cookies in school, you win a rifle. It's like, so we have to understand where people are coming from. I talk about the state and local tax deduction because in my district, if you're making a husband and wife are making $150,000 a year, and you're living in a $500,000 house, and you're paying $15,000 a year in property taxes, you're like middle class. You're like just making the middle class. Okay, if you're making $150,000 in Oklahoma, and you're living in a $500,000 house, and you're paying $15,000 in taxes, you're living in a gated community, and you've got you belong to the country club, and so it's just different in different places, and we have to understand each other about what their economics are like, what their life is like, what their influences are, and that's a matter of just spending time with each other and understanding each other and not demonizing each other because every problem we face in our country is complicated. Nothing is simple. Anybody who says, why don't you just, doesn't know what the hell they're talking about. And to solve a complicated problem, you can't do it in an environment of fear and anger with everybody yelling and screaming at each other. You need to sit down and try and find common ground.
Oh, for sure. You would think that in an era of social media where we can learn about other cultures and life experiences within our own country, that people would have more empathy and be open-minded to different walks of life and perspectives. But it seems to be that a lot of people just continue to remain in their own perspective silos, right? They're like, I'm just going to affiliate with Democrats. I'm going to affiliate with people who look like me or have my same educational background. And that's like the exact opposite of what I'm sure social media could be doing in this day and age, which is really saddening.
What's so crazy is like the statistic that I forget the number, but it's way like it's over 60%, I think, of people that say, I won't marry somebody from the opposite party. I mean, it's like that's a new phenomenon. I mean, that's literally 10 years old, 5 years old. And that people just have this feeling that we're just so different from each other. And I understand. And you talk about social media. I think it happens a lot more in social media. If we spend more time just with each other in person, talking to each other, we'd find so much more in common than divides us. And social media, it's much easier to like anonymously just like demonize the other side. And there are people that you know do that for a living, that work at trying to demonize the other side, including our foreign adversaries, where they go out of their way to just make us look like we're completely different from each other.
Right. We have some real ops out there, and it's very troubling. But going to a different conversation here, one of the takes I had from this past cycle was that one of the biggest problems with the Harris campaign and Democrats overall was that we had a loss of trust among voters, which we just talked about, but also this failure to be the authentic and compelling centrist that they claim to be, right? How can Harris claim to be, stumping with Liz Cheney about a bipartisan ticket when 4 years ago she was a super progressive, right? So, what are some of the ways that you think Democrats can regain trust among voters while also cultivating this centrist brand that helps us actually win over undecideds, independent voters, and swing voters?
Well, the hard part is that both parties have this, but the Democrats lost, so we got to focus on it more than they do right now. Is we're much too intimidated by our base. Okay, we're afraid to say anything because we're going to offend somebody. So the Republicans, how come Republicans don't talk about like background checks on guns? Because they're terrified that if they talk about it, they're going to lose a primary, and nobody votes in primaries. 10 to 15% of people vote in the primaries, and they're often the far right for the Republicans and the far left for the Democrats. So God forbid you say something that is out of the orthodoxy from the far right or the far left, Democrat or Republican, you're going to get beaten up by your own people. So people are too afraid to do that. Another problem is we rely too much on experts instead of just talking to people. I remember when Trump first won, I went to a conference with the DCCC, and there's like 50 people around the table, and it's like, what happened? How did he win? What happened? And a union guy says, I remember when the Democrats used to show up at church picnics and at bars, and they would come talk to you, and they don't do that anymore. It's like when I won a special election to replace George Santos after he got kicked out. That was my old seat. I ran for governor, I got my ass kicked, and I was out of politics. Then George Santos was there, and then I came back. But I started talking about immigration and about the border. And the consultants were like, what are you talking about immigration on the border for? That's a Republican issue. I was like, what are you talking about? That's what everybody's talking about. That's what the people are talking about. So, we have to get out of our expert zone and just talk to the voters again and spend time with people and understand them. So it's about the people. It's not always easy to do that, but you got to talk to the people, and you can't just worry about winning a primary and pandering to your base. You know, of the 435 seats in Congress, 380 of them are safe seats. You can't lose. The Republicans are going to win the Republican seat. Democrats are going to win the Democratic seat. That disincentivizes talking to the people, because only the primary voters are the ones you got to worry about, because you're going to win the general for sure. You could only lose a primary. So that's why so many politicians pander to their base. But there are 55 seats that could go either way. Those folks like me, we have to listen to the people, or otherwise we're going to. In my district, my congressional district, Donald Trump won by 20,000 votes. In order for me to win, considering less people vote in the congressional race than the presidential race, in order for me to win, I had to get 20,000 people voted for Donald Trump to actually vote for me to win by 11,000 votes. So talk to the people. Don't listen to just the experts. Spend time with people that are different than yourself. Like even different generations will make a big difference, to get a perspective as to different thought ideas out there, and stop demonizing people for disagreeing with you. Just try and understand why they disagree with you and try and find common ground.
Absolutely. And you just mentioned something that I also wanted to ask you about, which was that you're now in a Trump district, right? I think it was a Biden district previously.
Biden won by 11 points. Trump won by 5.5 points, 16.5 point swing.
What do you think contributed to that flip there?
Democratic brand is not good. It's bad in New York generally. You saw a lot of big moves, even though they stayed Democratic, a lot of big moves from Democratic to Republican. And that's related to, originally was public safety back in 2022 elections, bail reform, stuff like that. Then they weaponized, Republicans effectively weaponized crime. Now they're effectively weaponizing immigration, and Democrats have not responded to that. And I think that the voters generally, people are like, how could you vote for Donald Trump? Don't ask how is that possible. Ask why did you vote for Donald Trump? I think people were more afraid of the Democrats and the far left than they were of what Donald Trump's going to do. So we got a problem, and we have to be willing to speak up about things that we disagree with in our base. And because most Democrats are, like I said, and I think most Republicans are normal people. Problem is everybody's afraid on both sides to stand up to their base. So they happen to win this time, but they've got the same problem. We have to be willing to stand up to some of the more extreme things we're hearing from our base. Very few Democrats believe in defund the police, but that we got painted with that brush. We got very effectively by the Republicans.
For sure. And even to your point about the primary, Welcome's done some research and studies into different Democratic primary voters, and we call it the far left fifth. We talk about Democratic primary voters being so far left, but really it's only 20% of the Democratic primary electorate is actually more progressive. And so that's another lie that we believe that we have to pander when in reality, you could win without those voters technically, right?
And often people are organized, and they, because they're exercised, they're so passionate about a particular issue. So they're organized and they're more vocal and they get more attention. There was a study done like in 2000, I don't know, 17 or so, called The Hidden Tribes. The far left is like 8% of America.
Yep. Yep.
Young, secular, don't believe in America's history. The far right, anti this, anti that, against every single thing you could possibly imagine, 6 or 8%. Then you have traditional progressives, traditional conservatives. Then you have 52% of the people in the middle that are the politically disengaged and the politically disenchanted. The whole thing stinks. I'm sick of the whole thing. Those are the people that we've lost because they're just fed up with the whole thing. And it just happened to have swung against us this time because we didn't communicate as well as we need to.
And even to your point, piggybacking off of something you said a minute ago about more people were afraid of what the Democrats would do versus what the Trump administration may do. Something that I was talking to Yair Zavon, he wrote the Center Must Hold book, or this collection of essays, I should call it. But he was on the podcast a few months ago, and he was essentially saying, like, Democrats and even any centrist needs to do a better job of identifying and policing their extremists within their party and extreme ideas within their party. Which is important to your point about why voters would be more afraid of progressive ideology than conservative ideology. So what do you have on feedback on that? And how do you think we can make strides in achieving the goals of, policing extremism in a way that allows for nuance within the party, but also doesn't brand the party in a poor way?
So, both sides have this problem. Okay. So, Republicans have Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz and Lauren Boebert and other people that are like, way out there. And we've got problems on the Democratic side. The Republicans did a much better job of painting the Democrats with a brush of whenever somebody would say something extreme, whether it was a member of Congress or it was a mayor or a city councilman or a governor or a pundit, they'd say the Democrats. We did not effectively paint the Republicans with their crazies. And that's because they just tactically have done a better job adjusting to the new world of the fractured media, I think. And, which is now in silos, traditional media, social media, podcasts like this, ethnic media, national media, all different pieces. It takes a lot of effort. That's why I'm on your podcast. And thanks so much for having me on here, because you got to get out there and get across this fractured universe. So we need to do a better job. And like you said, policing our extremists. It's not easy to stand up to an organized group of people that are seen as being the orthodoxy of your party. That's on both sides. I always talk about how John F. Kennedy wrote a book called Profiles in Courage. It was written after 175 years of American history. And there were only 8 people in that book it's about, standing up to your own party when they're wrong for what's the right thing to do. And we're just afraid on both sides, but we're the ones in the barrel right now, the Democrats. We're afraid to stand up to things that just seem so far out there. Richie Torres talks about, the use of the Latinx term. I mean, nobody says Latinx. So why do we put up with that? The whole pronoun policing that we've gone through over the past 5 years. What about the whole, defund the police thing? I mean, most people don't believe this, that we should be doing this stuff, but God forbid you say it the wrong way. You're skewered. So part of it takes guts, part of it takes experience. A big part of it is just talking to the people, and listening to the people and not the experts. So you have the confidence to know that you're saying what the people are saying.
Right. And even, you're talking about, uncomfortability and walking on eggshells. I think, that's one of the reasons why people stray away from Democrats sometimes, because they're like, I don't want to get called XYZ name because I didn't say something properly and I didn't, whatever, to appeal to people in the right way. And it's like, that's so uncomfortable. Right. And I think that, we talk about a welcome, like which tailgate would you want to hang out with? If Democrats are the tailgate and the party that's so, politically correct and, making you feel uncomfortable all the time, then people don't want to be affiliated with that.
People are sick of being judged, and, just like you said, you're walking on eggshells that I'm going to say the wrong thing.
Right.
And we've got to wake up. I mean, look at me. I mean, I'm a straight white man who goes to church on Sundays. That's not easy in the Democratic Party these days. And so, but I've got a great record on Democratic issues and on different, I've got a 100% rating for the Human Rights Campaign and from Planned Parenthood and this group and everything. But I have to be careful that I'm not speaking the wrong way. So, but we're not going to win unless we have, like you said, welcoming. I guess that's the point that you're making. We have to be welcoming to people and listen to people's viewpoints, and not say, because you said something the wrong way, that you're going to get canceled or you're going to get ruined for that.
Yeah, Liam and I, my co-founder, have a piece out recently called "The Awkward Politics of Evasion," which is essentially talking about how we make it very hard to be able to essentially create the differentiation and distinction between us and other members of our party, because it's like you guys are literally colleagues in Congress, right? You're not necessarily talking about some random person from the other side of the country, which you are, but you're actually talking about someone within your own chamber. So if you disagree with one of your floor mates or seatmates or whatever, and you say that they may be wrong about a position, or you have just a different perspective, then it's like kind of awkward, right? These are actual people's interactions that you're dealing with. You're talking about people that you see every day. And so, but making those hard votes, even, talking about the Lake and Riley Act, like those were hard votes that had to be made to show the differentiation and the distinction. And also that Democrats are serious about the concept of, the topic of immigration. So anything else you want to talk about with, just like maybe the uncomfortability of having a take that may be antithetical to what Democrats, quote unquote, are supposed to be doing, that is actually helping them achieve greater trust among voters?
Again, that's human nature. You pointed to a basic fundamental factor of human nature. You don't want to be, it's not easy to disagree with the person you're sitting next to, or you're going to see at the next caucus meeting or the next event. And part of it is, again, I talk about getting to know and understand the Republicans or people from different parts of the country. I have to make sure I work hard at getting to know my Democratic colleagues. And I spend a lot of time on that, just so they understand me and I understand them, where they're coming from, because our experiences are very different. My district is a unique district. I'm on the North Shore of Long Island in Northeast Queens. 20 some odd percent of my district is Chinese, Korean, Indian, and Pakistani. I've got one of the largest Jewish populations in the country. I've got a higher income district than a lot of other places. But I need to understand, my colleagues that are right next door to me, or right to the south of me, that have large African American and Latino populations, which I have a lot of relationships because I used to be a county executive of a very diverse county. But we have different income level. I mean, it's just we're different, but if you just accept the fact that you can be different than other people are, but still share a lot in common, and do the hard work necessary to find that common ground, we can make things better. And things will not get better. It's easy to fight and disagree and divide. It's easy. It's natural human nature, like I've said several times already here. we've got to do the work to find that common ground. So I love it. I love it. I love politics. I love government. I love getting to know people. I love learning about other people. And I have great faith that we can find our way forward. And, we'll try and work with the Trump administration. He says a lot of stuff that's pissed me off already. I mean, this pardoning of the January 6th guys. I mean, and then I have to talk about one case, this guy, Daniel Rodriguez, who was they were beating up a Capitol police officer. He's on the ground. Some guys are saying, kill him, kill him. And he takes a taser and tases the police officer in his neck. Police officer has a heart attack and has traumatic brain injury as a result of this beating. This guy texts his buddies and says, you wouldn't believe the stuff I just did, and I tased the you-know-what out of the blue. And he ends up pleading guilty and gets 12 years in jail. Trump pardoned this guy. I mean, how can you say you're pro law enforcement? So there's a lot of things. That's just one thing. A lot of things that Trump did that pissed me off that I think are just wrong. But we got to secure the border. We got to figure out how to fix the issues of inflation, and we got to make people feel safe, and we got to figure out how to solve some problems. So we have to choose to work on that stuff and not just, be outraged every minute of every day and think about all the awful things that he's working on. I mean, and there are some things we got to fight no matter what, because some of it's just out of control. I mean, how do we get all this bipartisan support to ban TikTok unless they weren't owned by a Chinese Communist Party controlled entity? And then he just says, "Oh, I'm not doing that anymore." What? I mean, it's like, so anyway, there's so much to do, so much to talk about.
And I will give you one last question that you've already kind of answered, but want to give you any other opportunities to have thoughts on it. But our podcast is called The Depolarizers. We work to talk to people who are effectively working to depolarize American politics. What is one activity that listeners can partake in to help depolarize our politics in America?
Make a point of spending time with people that you don't normally spend time with. So, we all know that we all spend so much time on our phones. I'm included like that, like everybody else. You got to just spend time with people, hanging out with people that don't necessarily agree with you on things and that are different than you. You got to find people from different income levels, different ages, different races, different ethnicities, different religions, different parties, political parties. Just hang out with people. You'll have fun, I promise you, and the world will be better if you do that. The man was not made to be alone.
There you
Spend
go.
time with other people,
There you
and
go.
and stop just what do they call it when you scroll? Death scrolling.
Oh, doom
Don't
scrolling.
doom scrolling, right? Don't go out and spend time with people,
Yeah, like you said, it's fun. It's fun, and it builds your human experience to something that it wouldn't have been otherwise. So
and it'll give you more confidence, and then they'll give you more faith in other people as well.
yeah. Congressman Suozzi, this has been absolutely perfect and wonderful. Thank you again for being here, and just excited for you, and good luck with everything that you're working on.
And thank you for doing this type of podcast. This is fantastic. I really appreciate you having me on.
Of course. Thank you. We're really grateful.